Hello, headphone mixers. My name is Paul Third. That's Emrah Celik, an award-winning mix and mastering engineer with over 3 billion streams to his name, with 90% of those streams coming from headphones. Right, this week we are going to try and tackle Audeze. Now, we've not tried every Audeze headphone because they're very, very, very expensive, but we have tried in our time a lot of Audeze headphones. I have got 2 in the studio right now, and for certain other models I have spoken to people in our Discord. If you would like to get into a headphone community, if you become a channel member, which many people are starting to do now, again, just genuinely let somebody in the Discord like 20 minutes ago, you could get the link for the Discord and you can join the community of headphone mixers that we're building. It has EQ presets, how to EQ your headphones, Emrah's on there, and yeah, it's a great little community that we're building. And so we have many, many people mixing on various headphones, and there are quite a lot of Audeze users in there, so we've been able to tap into some of their opinions and experiences as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk specifically about 4 different headphones. We're going to discuss the Audeze LCD-X, the Audeze LCD-XC, which is the closed, the Audeze MM500, and the Audeze LCD-MX4. So we're going to be covering quite a kind of an array of budgets. They're not cheap, and they are quite an investment, and many people ask us our opinions because they are such an investment. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the LCD-X, as that is basically, I hate the word, Emrah, the industry standard, but many people in the industry have jumped to it. Many people that don't really understand mixing on headphones, and it's just became a thing that people go to, like as a starter, like in the industry. Now, Emrah did have the LCD-X, and as we spoke about in our last Hyphaman video, where we did a tier video, you can watch that, there'll be a link in the description. I mentioned that Emrah was mixing on LCD-X, and he controversially moved to the Hyphaman Sundara, which is a lot cheaper. The LCD-X is as much as 3 times the price as Sundara.
I guess 5 times.
Now it is, yeah. At the time, I think it was like 3 times.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah, 3 or 4 times, but yeah, it's went down now. So Emrah, can you please give us your experience of what you felt mixing on LCD-X back in the day?
Yeah, I got the first pair. There was a huge discount that I got from the Swedish company, and first pair came, and there was a left-right issue, the unbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
I sent them back and got the new pair, and that was okay. And I put them on and I started using them, and I realized that it's just incredible headphones. The technicality is incredible, but the tonality was not for me. And then I experiment with EQing, and finally got the sound, and I start working on an album with them. And then I realized that they are fantastic for mixing and mastering because they translate.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest issue with all these headphones is the comfort to me. It's just me. It was like, I have to look the keyboard, and they were just falling down, and
the weight
stuff
of
like
them,
that.
yeah, they are weighty.
I like to vibe with the song that I'm mixing, sometimes, and it was that freedom that was just missing.
Mm-hmm.
This is the point where I switched to Hyphaman. I search for something that can, not replace them, but somehow complete them. And then I purchased Sundaras, and then I realized that, yeah, I'm rocking with Sundaras. I don't need, all these.
Yeah.
And it was just in the package. They came with like the military grade, packaging.
Yeah.
And they were in there for 5 months, and I decided to sell them because I didn't use them. The big chunk of mid-range was missing, but it can handle the EQ there's no tomorrow.
The distortion is so low, isn't it? It's like
so low. It's like fantastic. They big, they beefy, they meaty, they have everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just that Audeze stock tuning that's that's
Oh.
bothering me.
I know.
It's just, yeah. Well, I'm still thinking that they are, most of the Audis that I tried. I tried LCD4, LCD5 on a show. Closed back, I use closed back and open back. I didn't try MM500. I tried, but it was just 5 minutes thing.
Yeah, I know. You can't really judge it that well, yeah.
No, it's just too crowded, and I wasn't focusing. To me, they are overrated for the price.
Mm.
When we think about the price performance range.
Right. So would you say, Emrah, that that's kind of the main issue for you, is that they are nearly kind of like a perfect, headphone for mixing and mastering, but the certain things that are missing for you don't really kind of justify the price. And obviously when we're thinking about recommending headphones, and especially investing, because again, this stuff doesn't come cheap, that investment doesn't really justify the quality for you.
Yeah. Because I was getting pretty good results from the Sondoras. And when I switched to LCD-X, the bass is getting bigger. It's like listening to a big giant speakers.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about that, but it's just, I got the good results with less EQ on Sondoras, just low-end shelf, and that was it.
To kind of close the chapter on the LCD-X, in regards to the imaging, Emrah, in the sim stage, because we haven't kind of talked about that, what would you say you feel about the imaging in sim stage? What kind of sound do you feel you get from the LCD-X compared to, say, the Sundara or like other Hyphemans?
They are not spacious.
Mm-hmm.
They are not as open as I used to from an open back headphones. They are more narrow, centric headphones, and I thought the imaging and soundstage was better on Sondoras.
I agree.
That's why I sold LCD-X, because only thing that I could judge with LCD-X is the low end.
Yeah.
The punch, it's just incredible. If there was no nanos right now on the market, I would say LCD-X own the low end to me. Still.
It's a massive, massive, massive recommendation. Yeah. And what about the Slam, Emrah? How would you compare the LCD-X Slam to Sundara? Do you feel that they were on par, or do you feel the LCD-X had a little bit?
No. LCD-X was just, it slams like there was no tomorrow.
It does, doesn't it? It is impressive, isn't it?
Impressive.
Okay. Now, so just because I know people will get kind of like confused, right? If you've not heard Sundara, right, for me, again, Emrah gave them an A for an all-rounder for the price. I think what Sundara does do better than LCD-X is that whilst LCD-X is technically on certain things superior, what Sundara does is Sundara is an all-rounder, and it gives you a nice balance of everything. It doesn't really excel in the Slam as much as LCD-X. It doesn't give you the sub and the meatiness as much as LCD-X, but it does do the imaging better. It does have better sim stage, better depth, and it does give you an overall balance of it where, Emrah mixed billions of streams on it. So you've got to think about, when, we're thinking about money, we're thinking about finances, investments. If you are getting very, very good results out of, at that time, say a £350 headphone, and you're sitting with, at that time, it might have been like 1,200, 1,300 at that time. Again, that was quite a while ago. What was that, Emrah, about 5 years ago, would you say?
Yeah, 2020. Just right before COVID, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Lockdown.
So around that time, maybe it would have been about like 1,300. So there was a massive, massive price difference. So I would understand why you've got them sitting there. And as well, I think another thing to mention is the weight, which brings me on, finally. Naturally, before we go to the LCD-XC, right, I promise we'll get to it. Just to wrap up, Emrah, what rating would you give them? A, all-rounder, B, honest, C, limited translation, or, F, just like don't recommend?
No, I got good results. I got good translation. I would rate them honest.
B, yeah.
Yeah, B. Because to be an all-rounder, you need more comfort.
Yeah.
and less pain on the neck,
Yeah.
They're heavy.
Yep. Which brings us on now, finally, to the LCD-X closed. These, in my opinion, are the best closed back headphones I have heard yet. As we've said, we've not heard that. Well, I'd say like the best closed back I've heard, like under at least $2,000. The stealths that I heard at MSMs, they're £5,000. They're ridiculously priced, very expensive, but they sound amazing. But the LCD-X closed for me when I listened to them at Eds and I got them tuned to Harman and stuff like that, and I got an EQ for them. I just felt the low end. It's just straight away, I was just like, there is the low end, the meaty, juicy low end. Again, really good slam. But yeah, I think they are very close to me between LCD-X and LCD-XC. They are relatively quite close. Again, the image and the sound stage is still a little bit narrow, but everything's still there. So for the LCD-XC, I'm struggling. Right? I feel like I want to give them an A, Emrah. If we take the weight out, right? If we take the weight out, right? Because they are the heaviest headphones. I genuinely can only sit with them on my head for 10 minutes. And I'm like, whoa, take these things off. Like, me and Emrah joke all the time in loads of videos like, yeah, you need to wear a neck brace and stuff, and you need to go to the gym all the time, like, mwah, mwah, you know what I mean? You have to basically have no neck to wear them. But if we were to take the weight aside, me and Emrah aren't kidding when we say that they are arguably the best closed back headphones, like under £2,000 that we've heard. Like, if genuinely, and I do mean this, if the weight was manageable like Hyphaman, they would be an A. Here's a good question. Would the LCD-X be an A if the weight was Hyphaman, comfort-wise? Or would you still make the LCD-X B? Honest.
Yeah, man, yeah.
I agree. LCD-XC, the closed, would you give that a B or would you put that A? Just when you consider it's closed back, so you can use it for tracking as well. You've got the isolation as well. I did prefer the LCD-X closed to the LCD-X when I heard them. Again, it has the slam. Again, everything is still there. You could mix on them and still get great translation on them. Weight aside, would you give them the same rating as LCD-X, or would you maybe push them to an A?
Yeah, we don't give. What was the highest we gave?
We've got S tier, which is endgame, which no headphones got yet, and we've got A, which is all rounder, which is just now Sindara and Dorganic. They're the only two that have got an A just now.
Well, I would give them an A, absolutely, all rounder.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
There are some issues. Stock tuning sucks.
Oh, so bad, so
but
bad.
Good thing is that they handle the EQ
so well.
Well.
Yeah, and I think this is something that we need to genuinely put forward, is that the frustrating thing for all of us with Audeze is that their stock tunings never make sense. You listen to it and you go, oh my God, this sounds horrible. And then when you get the right EQ for them, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, these are some of the best headphones I've ever heard. This is incredible. This is like PMC, low end, and transients, and punch, and thickness, and feel, and just the sound really, 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 really good. Honestly, on the Discord, like I do EQs for everybody, and the Audezes have been the hardest for me to do. I don't know why the tunings are so difficult. I get there in the end, but yeah, they are difficult. But I tuned it to Harman at Eds, and yeah, I do genuinely believe that if I had a really, really, really strong neck, I could genuinely mix on them. However, we genuinely do have somebody on our Discord that chooses to mix on LCD-XC over the ones you all want us to talk about. Here they are, the MM500. This is where things are going to get very, 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 very controversial. It's going to go down like a lead balloon, and I'm ready for it, Emrah. Brace, buckle up, Emrah.
Yeah, man, I tried them, like as I said, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and they sounded horrible to my ears.
Oh yeah, totally.
Maybe I wasn't in the mood at that time, I don't know. But they don't have, the comfort is even worse. And
no, they're not as heavy. Now, these actually are the lightest out of the, like, LCD-X's and stuff like that.
They are lighter, but the clamp force is more.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
And I don't know why they don't use strap on. I think they use strap on them, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but clamp force is tight.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's your turn.
I know, sorry, I'm just doing a Paul Third QVC, just trying to turn it around. I'm just like, I'm not going to hold these the whole way through.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. This is where it gets controversial. Right. As Emrah said, the MM500's stock tuning, like most Audeze headphones, isn't great because they have an NS10 sound. Obviously, Manny Marroquin, tuned these headphones. That's why his, as you can see right there, his logo is there, Manny Marroquin. As far as I know, because again, me and Ed had Anthony Vilchis on the Working Audio Tools podcast, which I do with Ed Thorne. Anthony was Manny's assistant for 3-4 years. And, he's mixed, and edited, a lot of the Sabrina Carpenter stuff as well. He's got the Grammys for it. Actually, I seen he put a post up with a Grammy certificate. So again, heads up to you, man. Good job. And he was talking about how, he actually mixes on these because that's what he learned on. So all of Manny's assistants use these because if Manny is mixing and travelling, he will use these. He genuinely does use these. However, it's very important to understand that Manny always has been a strong NS10 user. And for anybody that doesn't know, the NS10 sound is, it's got a peak at 1K, which these don't, okay? But I think, the sound quality in terms of the upper mid peak, I'm going to have a graph on the screen here. There is an upper mid peak here. And so you don't have a lot of top end, you don't have a lot of low end, but you do have that kind of upper mid 3-4K peak, which makes the mid-range sound very, very, very forward. But, for me and Emrah and many other people, it's like NS10s where it's too harsh, where, I shouldn't listen to a Serban track or a Spike track, or a Manny track and be like, oh, that was a bit harsh there. That was a bit off there. These are professional mixers and there'll be mixes that have been signed off and mastered by some of the biggest mastering houses in the world. So obviously, if you are not aware of NS10s, these are going to be a shock for you. I think NS10 users will probably like these. I've spoken to many NS10 users and they're like, it's a familiar sound to them because they're used to almost mixing into a harsh sound. But right, as good as that may be for people, I just don't like these. They're very hard to EQ. They don't need a lot of EQ bands. Again, my EQ for them isn't a lot, but it's one of these hard things with these where I don't feel like they take EQ anywhere near as good as the LCD-X's. They just don't take EQ that well. It's interesting because the driver design's very similar. I'm pretty sure they're using roughly the same magnets, and I was kind of roughly under the impression that these were basically LCD-X with a different tuning. However, there are slight differences. Build-wise, I don't like the build on these either. I think that for £1,600, or again, if you can, maybe some people can get them for £1,400 in a sale, the build quality just doesn't speak Audeze to me. It's decent, but again, you look at this top, it's just, it's like, yeah, the headband's nice and strong, but I don't know, there's something about it that just doesn't feel like Audeze build quality. It doesn't feel like £1,600 build quality. It's solid. Again, this is like a metal casing, but again, when we get to say the LCD-MX4, that's arguably, in my opinion, one of the best built headphones on the fucking planet. It's just, they're just not got what I class as the Audeze LCD-X quality build-wise for me.
It doesn't look like that the military-grade looking that we used to see from Hi-Fi-Man, right?
Correct. Yeah, and again, comfort-wise, it's strange because the pads themselves are actually quite small, which I find quite interesting. For me, it's I've not got big ears, I've kind of just got average ears, but they kind of feel like they do sit over, actually on my ears, where I'm not, again, if you think about Hi-Fi-Mans and stuff, they normally sit over my ears, because I normally use the egg-shaped cup, but yeah, they do feel a little bit smaller, cup-wise, which isn't really for me. And the issue is with them is that when you do get an EQ for them, right, this is the difficulty, is they remind me of the Sony MDR 7506s, right? Where they've got a very kind of similar kind of character where it's almost like NS10s where they give you this kind of big mid-peak. Now, when you take the mid-peak down and you bring it down in line to say with Harman, which is correct, I would say, in my personal opinion, it sounds really dull. And all of a sudden you're like, this sounds dull. And then you've got to work at the top end. So it's almost like a bit of a tilt shift where you're trying to bring down the upper mid-range and then counteract the top end that's missing whilst also giving the big bass boost. These do need a big bass boost because, again, they just sound like a pair of fucking NS10s. But EQ, the low end, doesn't have that, what I class as, it's nice. It's like, it's got sub there, but it's not detailed sub. It's not got the punch. It's not got the low end meat that LCD-X and LCD-XC, especially the closed. I just think the LCD-X closed low end is fantastic. This doesn't have it. So it's not got the characteristic Audeze low end of the LCD-X, in my opinion. Everything sounds kind of stuffy when you kind of EQ them, and you EQ them to sound correct, and you bring up the top end that's missing, you dull that top end that is too harsh and a bit too bitey for me. Because the thing is, if you mix into that, and you're used to like what we're used to with Harman, and again, neutral sounding speakers, your counter translation will be impacted because what you'll do is you'll then start to mix very safe and you actually won't have enough upper mid-range in your mixes, and your mixes will then start to sound very, very soft, which we have heard in the Discord. So in the Discord there are a few MM500 users and there has been translation issues, and for me they don't have the microdynamics of a really good Audeze. It's got slam in there, but it's not like, again, it's not the LCD-X slam. They do have an element of slam in there. They do have a nice bit of weight and girth to them, but it's just not for me. It's not the LCD-X. The microdynamics feel like they're a little bit shaved. Again, like the top end, like the top end of transients. Again, if I listen to, say, Hella Good by No Doubt, I always use that snare as a way of judging microdynamics. Spike did a great job on that snare. And yeah, I could just hear that the certain parts of the very, very, very fast microdynamics are shaved off. They haven't got the speed retrieval to be able to give you really good microdynamics. It's decent microdynamics. Soundstage and imaging wise, I hate them. I'm going to be honest with you. They're so narrow. They're like so narrow, I find it difficult to mix on. Like, we were talking about HE1000 DESIs, which Emrah has went, after last week's episode, he's been having them back on his head, mastered the track with him this week, told him, fucking best headphones ever, sound-wise. Now, I mentioned that with, like, HE1000 DESI, it's like you can hear, in terms of panning to, like, left 100, right 100, you can hear, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. With these, like, 55 and 70 panning, could almost sound the same. It's so narrow and it doesn't have the separation. Depth-wise, it's like, it's all right. Like, the image is all right. This is the thing with these headphones. If you were to say, Paul, like, what would be the word to describe these? I'd say they're all right. And the issue with all right is that, they can cost like upwards of £1,600. Let me double check. Right, so just doing a quick Google search, I've just typed in Audeze MM500. So I've got 1500, 1500, 1600, 1600, 1500. So 1700. Wow. So you were talking, I would say, probably on average between 15 and 1600. That is a hefty investment for headphones. Very, very hefty. I mean, the HE1000 DESIs, arguably the best sounding headphones on the planet, don't cost that much. So at that price point, I would expect a much better build. I'd expect arguably the best bass. I would definitely expect better bass than LCD-X. The separation isn't great as well, by the way. That's another thing I don't like about the bass, is that kick and bass don't really have great separation. It's like almost like a blob of low end. The low end's there, but it's like, and it's got the sub, but it's like a blob of low end. It's not that detailed. Imaging wise, yes, it's the imaging is accurate. It's just that it's too narrow. So whilst it's accurate, it's just too narrow. And what I would do mixing on these, my counter translation would be I would make things wider. So when I was listening to a few mixes I was working on, when I'd stick these on, I'd be like, oh my God, I can't really hear that as good. I want to make that wider. Oh, I want to create more separation. And I was trying to create separation and change panning and make stuff wider when they didn't need it. And that was the counter translation. And even when they're EQ'd, again, I just think that they sound all right.
Can we say they're pretty much overrated?
Oh yeah, 100%. These are like overrated, overpriced. This is what's going to really be controversial, is how much I would say these actually should be retailing for. I would say that these are like a £600 headphone. Like, I genuinely do believe that like these are £1,000 too expensive. These aren't as good as LCD-X, and actually these aren't mine, by the way. So a member of the Discord, is that Scottish? Again, would you believe I've got a Scottish person on the Discord? And he sent me these, and he bought the LCD-X closed, and he actually prefers the LCD-X closed with my EQ to the MM500s, and that's why he sent them to me to try out. So it seems to be a common trend with certain people on the Discord and other people I've spoken to, that there's many people that do prefer LCD-X to the MM500, and there is a considerable price difference.
Me?
Yeah.
You know, LCD-X, Audi's best headphones they ever built.
Okay. We're going to get to that statement because I'm going to disagree with that.
No, the price range. I mean,
okay, yeah.
I know, you know.
Yeah,
I know what you're gonna put on the table.
He knows where I'm going. Okay, but I'm going now for a rating. I'm going to give them a straight up C, for me, verging on F. This is where it's difficult, right? Price, due to the price, F. Like, anybody says to me, know what? Oh, okay. I'm going to go even more controversial. I'm going to give them an F. Because I genuinely wouldn't recommend anybody to buy these. If they were £600, I'd say, yeah. They come with the carry case. Again, it's like for military grade carry case. The cables are really good. Again, it's got the XLRs in there. So that's an upside. And again, I've heard Audeze's customer support is meant to be really good as well. So again, for £600, I think that'd be a good buy. But you're going to struggle to advance with this sound. You're going to have to basically change the way you hear things to make these work, and you may never be able to make them work. And what's difficult with this is that people will be like, I can't believe that Paul Third, of all people, is not recommending headphones that one of the biggest mixing engineers of all time uses and endorses. Yeah, because we're all different, and we're all human beings, and we all hear things differently, but these make sense to Mari Marikin. I don't think these make sense to the general public, as I don't think NS10s make sense to the general public. Look, at the end of the day, if you're an NS10 mixer, I'd say, yeah, give them a crack. But, fucking hell, like, at £1,600, it's a big investment. I'd say for like 95% of people out there, I would not recommend these. If these were £500 to £600, I would give them a C rating. I would give them a limited translation rating, because I think the image in the sim stage is going to give you issues. I think tonality-wise, they're not great, even with EQ. And many people struggle with a lot of things. Again, on our Discord, people have been openly saying that they struggle with translation. So, yeah, look, if you're Mani Marikin, these are great. Mani Marikin obviously wanted this sound, and again, his assistants understand the sound. I think NS10 users understand the sound, but I can't recommend it. There's lots of translation issues with they're massively overpriced and massively overhyped. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know. I'm going to get killed in the comments, Emrah. I'm going to get absolutely battered in the comments.
Yeah, man, just get ready. We understand that there's a big hype, but just think about it. We are testing a lot of headphones. We know how bad headphones sounds like, how good headphones sounds like, and I hope people trust our opinions, because we don't follow the hype.
Yeah, true.
We don't follow anything. We just give them a listen and test them, not just like listening a few minutes and just they sound good. I don't know, man. It's just overhyped. I bet Sundaras will be a better option.
100,000,000%. If you were to say to me, Paul, what would you rather mix on over MM500s? I would say Sundaras. Every day of the week, I would choose genuinely £220 headphones over these. Every day of the week. So, sorry, obviously, confirmation bias is going to be a bitch, and you'll let me know in the comments about your own confirmation bias. But, right, we'll move on, right? Now, we're going to jump up massively because I do have a very, very, very expensive pair of headphones. The Emrah's not tried, so this makes it difficult. We have these, the LCD-MX4s. This is arguably one of the best built headphones I have ever encountered. They are built like an absolute tank. When you feel these, you're just like, wow, these are like proper built. Like they come with the same carry case and stuff, but again, it's just, I don't know, just even when just feeling them in your hand, you're like, wow, I'm holding a piece of fucking metal. You know what I mean? It's like a proper build. Now, these are expensive. These are like £3,500. So this is going to be very, 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 very controversial. And it's difficult because Emrah's not tried them. But these, for me, are the closest to S tier that I'm going to give at the moment. I genuinely feel that they're hands down an A. They're an all-rounder. They do absolutely everything. They give you the bass response that we know and love from Audeze, but it's even better. The bass separation is better. It's like having a subwoofer on your head. The beef of the transients, there's this weight. Like if I want to judge like the low mid of transients, like the weight of snares, every time I can get it on these, the low mids is like, mwah. The mid-range is arguably the best mid-range I've ever heard of any headphone, and that includes Hyphaman. Me and Ed call it juicy, and I hate using that term because it's so audiophile, but I don't have another way to describe it. It's really frustrating me. One day I'll find a word for it, but the mid-range is just so unbelievably detailed without sounding harsh. And again, the top end is really nicely balanced as well. However, again, the downside is that the stock tuning is horrible. You would not believe that £3,500 headphones could sound so bad stock. They sound terrible. And they are a bugger to EQ. This took me ages and ages to get the right tuning for them. However, where these differ from MM500 is that I don't think the MM500 takes EQ that well, in my opinion. Distortion-wise, it does, but it's just, I don't know, it's like you're trying to craft shit to sound even shitter. Sorry, sound less shit. It's like, that's what it feels like to me. But these take EQ almost too well. It's like I could make these sound like a million different headphones. That's how good they are. Like I could genuinely I remember at one point I had 8-9 bands on this and I went to town on it and it still sounded good. But then I've kind of calmed the ham, as we say in Scotland. And I've only got it, I think it's like 5 bands now. And yeah, they just take EQ really well. Distortion's really low. Transients are amazing. Microdynamics are better. These are faster, way faster than the MM500s. Now, there are a lot of technical gumph that I could go into in regards to, the drivers, diaphragms, there is different technology, different tech going on in the MX4 compared to MM500 and LCD-X. And again, if you read on the websites and stuff, they'll tell you against faster transient response and it's just better tech. Yeah, the only thing I thought for a while, I felt like they maybe needed crossfeed. Because it's funny, because as opposed to LCD-X and MM500, which are super narrow, these do have a little bit of width to them. And originally I felt that maybe the bass was a little bit too wide for me, and maybe they needed monoed. But I was using really wide crossfeeds on them and real phones, like 110%. I was like, fucking hell, it's 110%. I could get away with it. And yeah, I don't need crossfeed anymore. It's enough where I can just learn the sound of them. It's got a good imaging's so accurate on these. Like one of the most accurate imaging that I've heard. Like Hyphaman imaging, spectacular. Sound stage is good. And when EQ'd to my EQ, records just sound right to me. Every genre sounds right. Metal sounds like metal. Country sounds like country. Hip hop sounds like hip hop. Everything just sounds correct to me. They're not distracting either, which is what I like about their imaging and their sim stage. Again, like the HE1000 SEs, which to me and Emrah are like the best sounding headphones on the planet, for listening to music, you can easily get distracted by a lot of the details and a lot of the resolution. These have got great resolution, but they're not distracting, which for mixing and mastering is a really, 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 really good thing. It just gives me all the details, and I'm struggling to like kind of give them like a negative point. Weight wise, yes. I mean, they are heavier than MM500, but they are lighter than LCD-X and LCD-XC. They sit in the middle. I could easily mix with these for like 30-40 minutes, but after 30-40 minutes, I do need to like take them off for maybe 2-3 minutes. They still have a weight to them. So comfort-wise, there is an issue with weight. However, I can wear them longer with than say LCD-X. And we did mention it before. See, like with these pads, like they make me sweat profusely up here. And Emrah laughs because my wife always says that I've got a big line. She always just like, oh, have you been wearing those big headphones again? I was like, why? Because you've got a big line on your hair. And I'm pure sweating. These are sweaty headphones. So yeah, like if you're like image conscious, and you want like your ear and your hair and your sides of your head to breathe, these aren't the ones, man. It's got a good seal on it. Again, the clamp force doesn't really. The clamp force would maybe bother some people. You can see again, it's got a very quick clamp force. So again, it's tighter than your Hyphamans and stuff, which is probably the reason why it sweats, makes me sweat so much. But my good friend MSM, who is one of the biggest engineers in the UK. He's like kind of one of the biggest mix engineers and all the grime stuff. And again, he did Cass is Dead, the Cass is Dead record that got a Brit Award, I think it was just last year. He was using these for years and he still swears by these. And, if you were to ask a really experienced engineer who knows, like Emrah, how to mix on headphones, you've got Emrah and you've got M. MSM is just as much of a headphone geek. I'd probably say even more, because he's got even more headphones than us. He's crazy. And he's got all the chord stuff and the M scaler and stuff. He takes it to another level. But he said that these were like the best average of everything that he had in his studio. I'm not going to tell you what MSM's moved to now, but he still highly rates these. And, he would mix on these any day. And he used them for years and years and mixed a lot of records on these. So, for me, this I want to say S tier. I really do, because I was speaking to somebody this week about all this. I had a mentoring client, and it was about mixing on headphones, and he's got the MX4s, and he's like, oh, Paul, should I get like the Nanos? And I said to him, look, the MX4s don't have the speed of the Nanos because nothing does, but these still have the speed, right? And at the end of the conversation, I said, look, if you could only give me one headphone in my entire studio, you were like, Paul, only one headphone, and you need to use this for the rest of your career, I would use these. And that's saying a lot for Paul Third, who is such a Hyphaman fanboy, who adores Hyphaman, but these just translate. I have won mixes. I actually beat my good friend Ed Thorne in a friendly mix battle for a client, and this just translated the way the client loved it. And I always find that if I listen to a record, it tells me the truth. It doesn't tell me too much. It doesn't tell me too little. It tells me exactly what I want to hear. And it's just a really, really, really amazing sounding headphone. And it's just accurate. I think, the only headphone that I find that's just as accurate, and even in regards to imaging and stuff like that, would be the Hyphaman HE6 SE version 2. But the timbre's better on this, and you could hear the driver quality. You could hear the more advanced tech than the HE6 SE version 2. They're just incredible. They're incredible sounding headphones. Yes, they're a bit weighty and they're a bit sweaty, but I like them that much that I could handle the sweat, and I could handle the lack of comfort, and I could handle taking them off my head for maybe every 40 minutes and giving myself a bit of a break. So for the weight, I'm not going to give them an S tier. I'm not, because me and Emrah want S tier to be sacred, and when it comes along, it's unbeatable. Again, you could mix on various headphones. You could make them work. Again, you could make Sandara work. The only issue for me, which is difficult, is the price. And I thought long and hard about this, because these sound like a pair of speakers to me, arguably better than like 90% of fucking speakers out there. Sub's incredible on them. Incredible. It's like having a subwoofer on your head. It's unbelievably low distortion. The tech's amazing. The build's amazing. I mean, I've got, looking right in front of me, I've got iLoud MTM Precisions that are my favourite speakers so far that I've had in the studio. You can get them for, say, 1,700, around that. These are better than them. You get more sub out of them. Again, you can take them with you. They're portable. They come with a carry case. The cable, again, this is the Duconi cable that I use, so I can switch between this and Husqvarna and other headphones. But again, the cables are really good with them. But how do you feel about me saying that, I love £3,500 headphones? Would you pay £3,500 for headphones, Emrah?
Yeah, that's investment, bro.
That's massive. One of the this is biggest investment you would probably make. As
I said, if it's good and it's going to put me like a few percent up, why not? Because it's going to pay off in the long term.
Yeah, and again, I was thinking a lot about the price, and I was like, these sound better than speakers that are like over £2,000 as well. I mean, look, I had PMCs. I had PMC 226s, had them in here and sent them back, got my money back. These sound better than PMC 226s. I think, to get speakers to sound as good as these, you're going to have to probably go to your keys. Again, 13 grand. You're going to have to, again, probably go with EMRAH'S Eves, like, that are gigantic. I mean, how much do your Eves retail for, Emrah?
11,000 euros or something.
Yeah, to get that kind of level of sub and accurate and detail, you're going to have to spend a lot of money, which, if you take it from the point of you can take these anywhere and mix on them. And again, power-wise, again, all Audezes are relatively hungry. They are. I mean, Audeze themselves recommend, even though on paper it'll say you need less, on, their website and in their manual it'll state that, they need at least, I think it's about, 300 milliwatts. Like between 200 to 300 milliwatts. Recommended, minimum, they say, is 150 milliwatts, but recommended is between 200 to 300. And I take it it's because these require a lot of current to be able to reproduce a lot of the microdynamics and the speed that these have. So you are going to need to get a decent headphone amp, but you don't need to spend the biggest amount. And I use these with the Cord Mojo 2 against a battery-powered headphone amp, and they do these spectacularly well. A Topping L30 Mark II, I'll breeze this, I'll piss it. Like, it'll be absolutely easy. A Topping L50, I'll do this every day of the week. It's just that if you've got, like a fucking Scarlett, or you've got like an audio interface, most audio interfaces aren't going to be able to do this justice. They're going to need the power to be able to adequately drive these. So, it's controversial, saying that, £3,500 headphones, is a good investment, but when you compare it to the quality that you need to buy in speakers, for me to get this level of quality, I'd say you can justify it. And I do genuinely believe that these are better than all the Hyphamins. Maybe not Husqvarna, but I need more time with Husqvarna. But even still, Husqvarna, we'll get onto that there's different low end. Husqvarna's dual driver, and it genuinely sounds like a subwoofer in a room, but like realistic. These still sound like a pair of headphones, but like the bass is so accurate and meaty and it's so enjoyable. It's like a pair of PMCs. That's Husqvarna's are realistic, but they're £3,500. So yeah, as you can see, I'm struggling, but that's what I would say. I'd say LCD-X, yeah, probably, compared to other headphones you can get, yeah, probably overpriced. But again, I've spoke to many people who have said to me, and again, I know somebody very well, that knows a lot about mixing on headphones, and he still states that with the right EQ, he feels that the LCD-X are one of the best headphones for mixing and mastering. MM500 doesn't do it for me. LCD-X closed, sounds great, just too heavy, as is LCD-X. this is, I think, just the right middle ground, but they are still relatively heavy. Like if you have, again, there's a few people, I think there's one, maybe 2 or 3 on the Discord that have maybe had neck injuries, or again, have maybe, had issues with their necks. No, I can't advise this for people that have had like neck injuries and stuff. Again, you need to look after yourself. But sound-wise, I know it's crazy, but yeah, I would say it's, virgin on S tier, man. Honestly, if I had to only use these for the rest of my career, there's no doubts I would be able to do it. MSM did it for years, even though he's got all the rest of his speakers and all the rest of his headphones. He trusts them, many others trust them, and I trust them. And that's, I think, where I would leave it. Is there anything else you think we've missed, Emrah, covering Audeze? Is there anything else you would maybe like to say to wrap up the video?
No, man, you just keep teasing me. So I was just checking the prices where I can order a pair. I know how hard to give a pair of headphones S tier.
Yeah.
For you. Yeah, but we won't give anything S tier as far as I know, as we spoke.
Yeah.
And
it's the weight. I can't really give it. Sound wise, it's S to me, but the weight again, like, isn't end game, because that S tier would mean it's perfect, for everybody.
It has
Anybody
to be
could pick
perfect.
them up.
It has
Exactly.
to be perfect.
And again, there is somebody that generally on my Discord that generally did have a neck injury, so they need to have light headphones. And again, that's why we would recommend, Sony MDR MV1s and Ioons and stuff like that. So yeah, definite A, like highest grade A for me all day long. And I think it's a good investment. If you're not wanting to go down the route of multiple headphones, like again, you're like, I want to get organics and nanos, which is crazy because organics and nano would genuinely, for me and Emrah, be like, you could easily end the rest of your career there and you'd be absolutely fine. And that's still like half the price of MX4s. So yeah, it's quite difficult to recommend, but I can only give you my opinion, and that's my opinion, and that's our opinion on the Audeze that we've tried so far. Yeah. My hope is that when me and Emrah go to CanJam, by the way, if you are thinking about going to CanJam in London, actually very soon, fucking hell man, like 2-3 weeks, me and Emrah will be there, and hopefully we will speak to, the lovely people at Audeze, and, we might be able, to get Emrah to try the MX4s, and for me, obviously, Paul's got to go LCD-4 and LCD-5. I got to do it. So yeah, that's how we'll leave it. Leave your comments down below. And MM500 users, I'm sorry to break your heart. And yes, I'm ready for your toxic comments. But just remember, it is opinions at the end of the day. And it is, just a part of being honest and trying to share that honesty with other people. That's what's important on this platform. So, my name's Paul Third. That's Emrah Celik. And next week, we will be covering Slate VSX. And it will be less Paul Third, the least talking Paul's ever done, because I never actually used it. It'll be basically Emrah's episode next week, so stay tuned for that, because again, there's a little bit of controversy in that as well. That's what we do on MixPhones, all about the honesty and transparency. So yeah, there you have it. My name is Paul Third. That's Emrah Celik, and we'll see you again next week.